Looks like it's live. What's happening, everybody? Hope everybody's having a fantastic start to your week. Jumping online for a quick live show this evening. Figured I would chat with y'all. Give y'all a little bit more in-depth, I don't know, commentary on our little sensor debacle that we ran into. That was a real treat. So, if y'all haven't seen the video that I posted up earlier today, basically it's just more or less me lamenting the fact that, you know, you can't go to your local auto parts store and get auto parts for your automobile. Apparently, you have to go through Mopar to get Mopar parts for your Mopar car. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. Michael Corleone is in with the arm flex. I like it. EG's checking in. Mark's checking in. What's up, man? So, the weird thing is that you can't just go to the auto parts store and get auto parts for your automobile, which I thought was pretty interesting. And I'm still a little bit bamboozled as to how in the world you can have two sensors, and I kid you not, I don't know if this came over in the video, but I mean, they're identical down to the little ridge right there. Is that making any sense? Can y'all see that? Obviously, even the little ring is the same. These things are identical. Man, if I'm being honest, the aftermarket part fits perfect. So, much to my dismay, it didn't work. The funny thing is that you guys may have had the problem too, but if you did, your car may have thrown a code. Mine didn't throw the code. I just got the ABS and Mr. Squiggly light up. So, again, kind of a weird thing, which leads me to believe, I think that the tone ring maybe in the hub was bad or something. I don't know. Typically, you would get some type of a code, and I didn't. Whereas I had received, I forget what it was. It was like a 0035. Don't get me in a line because I'll just screw this up. For whatever code was out there. So, again, if you go, and here's the other thing, if you go to an auto parts store and you say, I need a wheel speed sensor, a front wheel speed sensor for, in this case, a Hellcat, this part number comes up. And I did that at two different auto parts stores, and the exact same auto part pops up. And eerily enough, they had, one of them had one in stock. The other location actually had two of these things in stock. And, I mean, I guess they're going to keep getting one or two in stock because, or they're going to keep one or two in stock because these are going to get returned. For you guys that are wondering, like, what the cost is, by the way, the aftermarket part, and I didn't get into this in the video that I put out, but the aftermarket part is about $35-ish as of 2021. And the hub, full retail on that, I think is $270. By the way, here's that hub again. I want to show you guys this. Kind of a trick thing. And I didn't spend a whole lot of time on the hub in the video, primarily because there's only so much you can really talk about. And really the gist of the video was the parts, and you can't use an aftermarket part. Well, you bet your ass I'm not about to try to use something that's not Mopar, that is affixed to basically what would be the spindle, I suppose you would call it. But anyway, this is how it mounts. It's actually asymmetrical. So if you can see that, it's got these little bulges here, and it just goes, and then the bolts come in through the other side and thread in that way. Underneath that little cover, this right here, I think looks like a hat. That's where your tone ring is. And again, the way that it reads it in the assembly is like this, basically. It sits about right there. I'm half convinced that the hub was actually the thing that was causing me all the problems. But again, I'm not going to find out, because unless that other hub fails, I'm not going to be worrying too much about the hub, I'm not going to try to remove it and return it just to put this thing back on there, even though this thing only has 17,000 miles. Which brings me to my next point, and one I was going to talk to you guys about. Not only is this a, replace your part with a Mopar part chat here, but the interesting thing here is just how many of these wheel speed sensors seem to have gone, well, for lack of a better way of putting it, gone bad for a lot of these cars early on. And my car only has 17,000 miles, and you can say, well, it's a 2015 and it's X number of years old. And, is it a year thing? Is it a timeline thing? Because, in the fleet, we've got, 2017 Dodge Ram trucks that have got, mine's got 124,000 miles on it. Actually, I'll post this on Instagram. I caught my odometer at 123,456 miles. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I thought that was pretty cool. I need to post that up. But anyway, that was a little bit ago. I just need to get that to it. But the interesting thing is, whether the hub is bad, I don't know. We'll find out. It's got a little bit of a weep to it. The box doesn't have, it's not like the box was full of oil or anything like that. It's bone dry in there. But if you do end up replacing these things with a new hub, just keep an eye on the inside portion of your rim. There's actually a little drain cutout in the, again, I'm going to call it a spindle assembly, although there's not a spindle. This thing would take the place of the spindle here. The hub would. As you can see, again, it's non-serviceable. The bearing is right in here. And if you see any weeping when you first get it, I've seen hubs and parts like this that will weep a little bit. A lot of times it's just the fact that there is oil there just in the ridge. It's not weeping. It's not the seal. It's just extra. You'll notice that, like, if you change the oil in your car, you get a little bit of oil on the rim of your filter. It's not leaking. It's just the stuff kind of just, comes out as you're driving. I think that's probably what's going on with this thing. It's a Mopar part, obviously Mopar box. And if there is a problem, I'll catch it pretty quick. But again, the point was, make sure that you are just keeping an eye on things like that. But at any rate, figured I would touch base with you guys. If y'all had any questions along the way, I'm more than happy to answer them. Again, this is a real common failure point for these Mopars, and I wanted to get a little bit more in depth. There's a lot of how-to videos. I even did one myself on these, and it's all but unwatchable because it's actually probably not the right way to go about doing it. These things are so easy to swap out. Once you see them, you'll know how to fix it. And again, all you need is one of these little trim fork things and a 10 millimeter deep socket will work. Shallow socket will probably work just fine too. It's a 10 millimeter bolt that holds that sensor onto your hub. Now, I will say this: do not lose that little bolt. I didn't lose mine, but just, top tip for you: don't lose it. And then replacing the hub, it's what was it? It's 315 millimeter, I think. I think it's 315 millimeters. Hold it onto that spindle assembly thing, and it's a 13/16 is what fits it the absolute best bolt for the caliper on the Hellcats if you're doing your own work. So anyway, torque spec is just torque the shit out of it, and you're good to go. And like I say, it's not too difficult of a task. All you got to do is just jump on it. But let's see. And catch up with all you guys. Let's see. Again, Mark Coyon, what's up? Like Greg saying, Mr. B. Mason in the house, what's up? Shawnee's saying, good evening, Sean. Randy's saying, good evening, Mr. M from Middle Tennessee. I like it. EG Performer saying, yes, Mark Coyon. That's right, no aftermarket speed sensor for Mopar. Yeah, and again, funny, it's just, it blows my mind. You can buy this thing. In fact, I bought two of them thinking, okay, maybe the sensor I bought was wrong, even though I didn't get a code. Never did get a code, by the way. It actually took Alex's, I forget why, past the whatever. Anyway, fancier stuff than I got to read it. And again, I mean, popped up right away, incorrect component installed. So the only thing I can think of, and I've never, keep in mind, my only experience with a wheel speed sensor is on my own stuff, okay? And it's only been on the Hellcat. Shalandra had 30-something thousand miles on her. I never replaced one wheel speed sensor. Same brakes, same everything as a Hellcat too, because she was an SRT. Anyway, I just cannot for the life of me wrap my head around the fact that this is the wrong speed sensor, unless, and after doing some snooping, because as you may imagine, this'll, I mean, you'll turn this into a hobby pretty quickly, trying to figure out what the heck's going on. I started looking into it, and not necessarily this part number, because when you pull up this part number, the unfortunate thing is that it comes up 2015 through 2021 Challenger. I am not sure, but I believe that the Hellcat, any of the SRT equipped, and maybe even the Scat Pack cars to a certain degree may have the same hub. Other cars may not have the same hub. They've got the pass-through spindle type hub with an actual exciter ring type of a ring as opposed to a tone ring. The exciter ring looks like some gothic jewelry. It's spiky. It's pretty cool looking. That's the only thing that I can think of that maybe that sensor works for. And that for whatever reason, even though it looks identical, the component just doesn't work as it should. Dad's Garage, thanks, man. Saying just cuz B is awesome, man. I appreciate that, brother. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Now, if I can only get you to convince other folks, let's see. But thank you, brother. I appreciate it. Let's see. Katie's saying, what up, Mason? What up, Kay? He's just saying, got a standard brand TPS sensor as well. Mine is acting funny. How am I not surprised? Alberto is saying, what up, Professor Mason, checking in from Michigan. Love Michigan. Thank you for joining us. Roy saying, pumps up. Sean saying, what vehicle project has got the most of your attention right now? Well, right at this very moment, it's a toss-up between the Hellcat, obviously getting this wrapped up and keeping an eye on the on that hub. I'm gonna try to get about, I don't know, 30 or 50 miles on the car just to validate, make sure that hub's good. But next is going to be the Camaro. I have got to get that thing on the road. As a matter of fact, the gas that's in that car, I think, is going bad. So I recently had some work done here, and basically just sprinklers, fire code type stuff. And I had moved the Camaro out of here so that I could replace some light bulbs. I was up, the shop's got ceilings that are like 30 feet tall. So I'm up 30 feet up in the air with these like 10-foot long fluorescent bulb lights, right? So I'm up there moving all that around. The car was in the way. Well, fired up the car, moved it outside, fired right up. But to fire it up after I brought it back in to kind of move it again, and it just bucking, coughing, wheezing, the whole bit. Basically, whatever fuel was in the fuel rail was about as much as it took to move it from one place to really right out in front here. And then bringing the thing back in, it was just, it ran fine when I fired it up, but when I parked it and tried to go to restart, it wasn't having it. So I am going to have to burn all the gas out of that thing. I'm sure that's what that is. I don't think it's a fuel pump. You can hear it cycling, but anyway, that'll be next. I'm going to be pulling the dash out of it and working with some folks on getting that all redone. Those early 90s Chevrolet Camaros, primarily Gen 3 Camaros, amongst others, Corvettes are notorious for this too, are just terrible on just weird little electrical problems, which is funny because this thing is like, we're right in the middle of this thing with having this goofy stuff. By the way, guys, for those of y'all not necessarily in the know, this is, well, not this is garbage, but this will be the second wheel speed sensor that I've replaced on the Hellcat. So kind of an interesting, way that that's all come about. The car, again, only has 17,000 miles and we're already replacing sensors, which is a little bit of a challenge for me to accept because, man, I mean, I get it. The car isn't driven that often. And I don't know how often this does come up. And of course, it's every vocal, minor amount of people that have this issue are going to be real vocal about it. Because, for good reason, they're kind of pissed that their expensive ass car, doesn't work as it should. So, or at least not as promised. But anyway, I think that's going to be what gets the most attention. And that's going to be about it. I gotta finish loading some tunes into Foxy. And what else? Oh yeah, it comes a thunderstorm tonight, by the way. Getting out and about is not going to happen. But I got to load some tunes into Foxy. It's got a Cal Edit software, tweaker software, and it's got a 5-position switch. So it'll have a security mode. It's got the tune that it had in it when it was on the dyno. It'll have the latest tune revision in it. A couple of other things, and then a bailout tune, like a low octane, and getting it behind. It's basically just the stock tune. So, and then that's pretty much it for that thing. Of course, the clutch is in the car, and that car, I haven't been playing around with it too much. The weather really hasn't been allowing for it, but just getting that clutch broken in, that's the main thing right now. And then Sierra, I am going to be waiting until this fall, give or take, and Sierra's going to get re-geared. I'm going to take that 410 out of it. It's going to get a 354 gear in it, and that's primarily so that the thing can be driven like realistically on the highway. Right now, it's you can get away with going 70 miles an hour, 75 miles an hour in that thing, but it gets real buzzy. And the problem is that it'd be one thing if that engine revved out to 6,000 RPM. It really wouldn't matter. But with it being a 400 cubic inch engine and having small block, smog era, albeit decent smog era 441 heads, but with it having those type of heads on it, it's just going to run out of breath no matter what at about 4,500 RPM. So it makes a ton of torque and it's a lot of fun to drive, but the gearing needs to come down a little bit to actually make the truck realistically livable and actually to make first gear like usable. Because right now you just tip into the throttle and it's 1-2. It's like it doesn't even, honestly, it's a lot like having something with a power glide because first gear just doesn't last long at all. So anyway, that's what we're working on. Plus that 354 gear will lend itself very well to long distance burnouts, which is realistically what 4,500 or 5,000 RPM 400 cubic inch engines lend themselves well for. So that will be next for Sierra. Revlon, I mean, she's just kicking ass the way that she is. I have been mulling over trying to play around with maybe some flex fuel technology, but I'm just not there yet. The car is as sweet as a nut the way that she is right now. And to be fair, she's fast enough as she is for what she is. Trying to get more power out of that thing is, well, I'll put it to you like this. If I put it on E85 and I drag another 60 horsepower out of it, say for example, it would go from running 1020s to basically high nines. It'd be like a high 980, but basically a 990 car. On one hand, that sounds pretty cool. Hey, it runs nines. Guys, I'm here to tell you, if you've ever driven a car, I'll give you a perfect example. If I threw you the keys to Foxy and I put a tune in the car and that tune made that car make 10% less horsepower to the rear wheels, you probably wouldn't notice it, right? The same goes for the Hellcat. It's roughly the same percentage increase, 8 to 10% at the most if you're really driving the point home on a stock boost car. This is on a stock boost car, okay? I'm not talking about for a lot more boost or, even red-eye territory for that matter, which, to be fair, I believe that car should have come from the factory with flex fuel technology. Just based on the weight, the load that thing gets hit with, the engine is what I'm talking about at that boost. It really needs E85. But the stock Hellcat with a 309 gear really doesn't need it. And again, you're seriously number chasing. And the problem with that is it's somewhat unrelatable. I can tell you guys that the next time I take that car to the drag strip, it'll run mid-10s. If I have that thing on corn at stock boost, the next time I take that car to the drag strip, it's going to run 10s. It's not going to be like it's going to go from, in hot, funky weather where it goes like a 1055. It's not going to go from a 1055 to a 995. That's just not going to happen. It'll go from a 1055 to maybe a 1025 or a 1035. And then you're not even DA correcting the thing through the fuel choice. In other words, I'm not going from a 1055 to my best at a 10-teen, or a low 10-teen. I'm just basically re-upping another 10-second pass. And so, after you've been around this stuff for long enough, and after you do this stuff for long enough, you figure out pretty quickly that trying to chase a number, look, if I go out trying to chase a number, I'm not going to be looking to go 990s. I'm looking to go 920s or something like that. It's going to be significantly stupid for me to actually go out and spend any time or energy on the project to just try to, maybe a little bit here and a little bit there. That's not really good enough. And besides, I'm having too much fun in just wrecking shop on people that have spent a lot more money on their cars than I have. So anyway, just my own, my own, how do you say it? Smug happiness with that car. I just really like that car a lot. Sean's asking, Mustang GT plus 40 grand twin turbo or new GT 500? Well, crap. GT 500. And the reason why I would GT 500 is because of resale value. It's just going to return better than your Mustang. And to swap everything out, that labor cost alone could eat up any savings that you had if you're looking to try to put that car back to stock and then sell the parts on and trade in the car or sell the car along, however you're going to do it. There's more panache with the GT 500, and again, you start to, at what point, the twin turbo Mustang, far and away faster. You're not even, it's not even a race at this point. You're talking about now a car that basically is the top of the food chain in terms of roll racing for a rear-wheel drive car. Or near it, it's in the conversation, versus a GT 500, which although it does some cool things, it's still a GT 500, and you don't have to do anything to it. With the Mustang, you start doing those mods to that car, you're pulling the transmission out. You are going to be building that transmission, and you will be putting an exhaust on it, and you will be putting axles in it. There is a lot of downtime, as opposed to just hopping in the GT 500, putting it in drive and having fun with it, and have a legit 10, basically a mid 10-second car stock. So there's that. I mean, you put a drag radial on the thing and it'll probably cover 1040s or 1050s fairly easily. And guys, that's plenty fast. That car will trap about 134 in the quarter, but still have a pretty decent top end rush. I would pick the GT 500 all day over a GT. But I wouldn't even touch the GT 500 at all. Because you're going to need all the warranty you can muster for that thing. Keep in mind, the minute you start touching that GT, warranty is out the door. Frank saying, hey, buddy, could you shout out my friend Mike Oxmill? Cheers, big fan. What's up, Mike? Hope you're having a good night tonight, buddy. Tux is saying, hey, B. Mason, how are you? Doing good. Did you do anything cool today? I swapped out some sensors on the Hellcat. Yay. That's what we're talking about. You got to buy Mopar parts for your Mopar car because aftermarket parts literally will not work, unfortunately. Dad's is saying, good seeing you during the week. Thanks. There we go. Sorry about that. Let's see. Oh, you can actually see my head here. Bam. There we go. I screwed that all up, didn't I? Thanks again, Dad's Garage. Doctor just saying, so what did you end up doing? I assume you figured it out. Sorry, 3 broken ribs, so you couldn't make it. So yeah, Doc Div had an issue. So what was it? Well, it's fixed. I did fix it, but we're still a little bit on the fence as to what it could have been. If the question is, was it a hub? Not sure, because when we put it on the scanner said incorrect part installed, and that is because we used an aftermarket part as opposed to a Mopar part when it came to the speed sensor. Didn't quite work. The hub, which you are familiar with, good old-fashioned right off the car hub, got a new one of these. Tone ring is obviously non-serviceable. The new hub had a little bit of oil weeping out of it, but I don't even know that it was weeping out of it. The box was completely dry. Just probably during assembly, like when you screw in an oil filter, you get a little bit of the dribble. Probably the same thing when this thing was pressed together or put together, however this thing, goes together. So I'm not really worried. I won't worry about it unless there's a significant amount of that hub oil on the inside of my rim. If that's the case, then I'll have to get a new hub, but I don't think it's any big deal. I think it's just a little bit weeping, from the assembly process. But yeah, the scanner was saying incorrect component installed. But that was an ABS module code, and obviously there was no MIL code and nothing to pull off the car in terms of codes, whether it was through the car itself or through the scanner. So yeah, there's that. But here's what it looks like. Here, I'll pull this up again for you guys so you can see what it looked like through HP tuners. Dr. Diff will get a kick out of this. So if you look, monitoring the wheel speed, I was actually monitoring RPM, wheel RPM and wheel speed, but you can see the highlighted in blue there that the sensor, the default, was still showing 636 miles per hour and a wheel RPM of like 8,100 and something, almost basically 8,200 RPM. So that's what it looks like through HP tuners scanning that. But obviously I don't have any other technology other than that. So we figured it out, although I'm still left shaking my head because I can't figure out how two sensors that are identical visually, I mean, you would be forgiven without seeing right here. Let me pull this around right here. Without looking specifically for your Mopar part number, hopefully that focuses, on the part of the connector right there where it goes into the, right there where it goes into the hub, or the back of the assembly, I should say. yeah, other than that part number, they are visually identical, and obviously they pop right in, but I don't know what car these would work in. Oh, what I was saying earlier was, so if at your local they carry this brand, when they put in your car as a Hellcat or an SRT or what have you, this part number will pop up saying that it's good for a 2015 to 2021 Challenger, and it's, again, I don't know if it's that the Hellcat is different, that the V8 cars are different, or that the 6.4 and the 6.2 have the same hub and the other ones don't. That maybe they use a tone ring, as opposed to, I'm sorry, an exciter ring as opposed to a tone ring. I don't know, man. I'm still trying to figure it all out. Maybe their sensors are identical looking, but I don't know. First time I've ever run into something like this. But, could it have been the hub? Maybe, because I never got a code. But anyway, that's what it was. Complex saying, good evening, B. What's up, man? Some Ferrari guy saying, my 5.0 manual car runs a little bit herky-jerky when shifting for a few minutes after I first start to drive, then clears up. Is that just the nature on a manual, or do I need new fluids? Well, probably a bit of the nature of the car. Once it's probably still in closed loop. Well, it's always in closed loop, but in startup mode, it may still be just real rich if it only does that when it's cold, like real cold. They say you don't have to let the cars warm up, but there are certain things that just won't act right until they are at temperature, and that's probably what's going on with your car. Oh, Roy's saying put a little fuel stabilizer and it might help the Camaro. I just need to get good gas in it. It was funny too, because I went to start it and it's just spinning over, and the car had just run. I mean, literally had just run, and I'm going, what the hell is this? And so I let it sit for a minute, kicked it back over, and it fires up and it says, oh, it just blows out all this black smoke and everything. I'm like, oh crap, dude, this is bad. So I'm guessing, like I say, that E10 that's in the car is probably starting to break down. Gas is pretty old. To be honest, I can't remember when I put gas in that car. So it's best I get that thing, put some fresh gas in her, and just drive it. Let's see. Oh, Frank Bruno wants me to shout out to his dad, Hugh Janus. What's up, man? That's a funny name, but hopefully that works out good for you, buddy. Sam Grable saying, so B, I've been looking at used 5.7 Chargers and Challengers. The current prices make my eyes bug out. Also thinking of going down to the 10-speed Mustang rabbit hole, but them big bucks. So here's the thing. When you are talking about the Mustang, the issue that you run into with the Mustang is that it works really well, and it works every time right up until something fails. And the rabbit hole that most guys go down with the Mustang, basically it starts like this. You start out with the tune and the car runs great. It's a beast on, from a roll. And if you don't have a drag strip and you're doing all of this in the vacuum of the street, then it works out really well in terms of being competitive. But then you start adding boost to it. And that works for a little bit until you get a bad tank of gas or the car doesn't run right, and it kind of gets you in a little bit of a panic mode. You beat on the car a little bit more and that 10-speed starts to fail. And the list goes on, and most of the time the guys don't build it from the rear forward anyway. And so you run into issues like that along the way. In other words, you start finding weak points, and usually you find weak points either with oil pump gears shattering because you're over revving the car, or the transmission lets go. what you'll find is most guys get in way over their head with those cars. And if you're not, and they will make power until they pop. That's the other thing with the Mustang. They will absolutely not stop making power. And that's been the Mustang's calling card for, well, since 2011. They would literally keep making power until they popped. And people couldn't just understand. I mean, back then, making 650 wheel horsepower was a big deal. And they were doing it like it was nothing, but they would always fail. There was always a 5.0 Mustang blowing up at the drag strip or on the street doing roll racing. So what ended up basically happening is guys started getting wise. They started building them better. You would see the guys with sleeve blocks. You'd see all kinds of things out on the street. Well, then the 2015 cars came out. Then the 2018 cars came out. Blocks are better. They can handle more power. There's just a few things that are tweaked with that combination. But the fact still remains that they will, again, keep making power until they don't. And where a lot of guys get into a lot of problems with those cars is, again, they get in way over their head. They're not used to the type of power that those things can make. And, you know, I tell you something, it's kind of funny the first time you roll into the throttle and you start to light the tires up at about 80 miles an hour. The problem is that these guys will be cruising along at 80 and watt the throttle, and it'll downshift to an aggressive gear, blows the tires off the rims. Basically, they stay in it, and that's when things just get really nasty for those cars. So they can be built to actually do really well and be reliable, but you've got to build it to be reliable. And unless you've gone through the motions of and put in the work and the hard hours to get the money that you're going to need to put into that thing to get it to that level, you're going to have a lot of problems with it. And the other thing is guys get greedy. I mean, the greed thing really kicks in with the Mustangs hard. Guys throw in more aggressive torque converters, and you start messing with, again, the recipe with those cars. Next thing you know, you're having drivability issues. They're crappier there's more to it than what you might think. It's the thing is that it's almost worse than playing a video game when it comes to the Mustangs, because you buy more parts, it makes more power. You buy more parts, it makes more power. The problem is that the consequences are real world serious. And when you shatter an engine or frag a transmission, or worse, light up the tires at about 120 miles an hour and the car starts wall hunting, that's when you'll figure out pretty quickly where you're at in terms of the whole, driver skill set, writing a check that your ass can't cash, or driver's ego, I should say, writing a check that your skill set can't cash. That's why you end up seeing a lot of these turbo Mustang builds for sale. With a lot of real sketchily worded advertisements. I think you can see where I'm going with that. That guys just want to get out from underneath it because it's done something that has mortified them. And they figured out pretty quickly that is not what they're into anymore. So that is nothing new, by the way. That's a phenomenon that's been going on forever. It's just now the consequences are a bit more dire because the cars are making that much more power. I mean, again, 650 horsepower to the rear wheels in a car that weighs 3,600 pounds, that will get your attention in a real quick second. Add about another 250 horsepower to that, and when you're doing burnouts for distance at over 100 miles an hour, things get real quickly, and there's no recovering from a mistake at that point. You can get away with the naturally aspirated stuff. You can play with even cars as fast as Hellcats, for that matter. You can kind of have fun with the Hellcats in that respect, certainly the Scat packs. But when you start getting into that type of a power to weight ratio range, where you're making 800, 900 horsepower to the rear wheels, little mistakes that you make that you go, ah, that was funny. Yeah, that's those little mistakes now have, really boxy looking trucks with red and white lights coming to scrape you off of things. So, yeah, that's kind of my thoughts on that. Let's see. Sam's saying, so I've been looking for used 5.7 Chargers and Challengers. The current prices are making my eyes. Oh, sorry, just got off on that one. So, Jimmy's saying, Sam, don't buy used currently. Yeah, that's true. Let's see. Bear with me here. Oh yeah, the used car market is absolutely ridiculous right now. Let's see. Oh, Rift is in. What's up, homie? Good seeing you. Let's see. Sam saying, be with the high fives, live long and prosper. I like it. Let's see. We're saying I ran a new E85 GT500 in my 2015 Hellcat with just a 3.1 pulley on E, and one actually surprised me. You shouldn't be surprised by that. You'd be surprised by the cars that I run with that are really close. I'll give you a really good example of this. There's a guy with an automatic Z06 pulleyed car on either DBRs or ET Street Rs that I run at the drag strip on occasion. And that is a car making about 650, 660 to the rear wheels. And he and I are practically identical. Our 60 foot is practically identical. Our 1/8 mile is all but identical. And our 1/4 mile is all but identical. And when I say identical, I'm talking if I go a 1054, he goes a 1057 or a 1058. If I go 134 miles an hour, he'll go 134 and a half. Okay. I mean, we're talking, 155, 60 foot for me and a 157, 60 foot for him. And like I say, when I say identical, they are basically like watching the same car go down the track. And and a lot of folks are going, it's not even going to be close. The vet's going to walk away from you. It's like, maybe, maybe not. And my girl will definitely run with it. So, again, we're not talking, all out full kit builds here, kind of like what you're running, but don't sell yourself short. I think you'll do better than you think. Tux is asking, have you ever driven SUVs or trucks on off-roading before? Oh yeah, I used to do it all the time. My dad and I used to go hit the oil field roads and would just go mosh back there with the Samurai, his 4-wheel drive, which ended up being my K10 Chevy. Yeah, we used to go out there and raise all kinds of hell. My Jeep, we used to go just beat the hell out of those. Rip's saying at around 140, he started to come around. That's actually basically what you should expect. I mean, for any of these cars versus a Challenger. Challenger has the race for the first half of the track usually, and we're talking it will set the tone to about 135 miles per hour. At about 135 miles per hour, though, physics unfortunately starts to take over, and wind resistance is your biggest enemy at that stage of the game. So, yeah, you'll start to see those other guys, and weight, but you'll start to see the other guys start to march around you a little bit at about 140. But again, at about 140, you've proven your point. You can stretch it to about $150 and then get out of it. And I get it; those speeds come pretty quickly. But again, I just got to warn you. I understand these modern cars, even stock, will get to these crazy numbers without any real amount of time ticking on the clock. You're there, right? Well, it's crazy just how fast these things are. It blows my mind. And I've been around it this whole time. So, Aaron saying, I have a Cam 6.0 Silverado with a basic tune. You think it's bad to run it on that? No, I'll be fine with that. Sam saying, I ran into that with my '05 Rams AC system, would not accept a non-OEM condenser and dryer, went through about 3 of them in as many days. That's crazy. Dr. Div saying, wow, glad y'all figured it out. Those sensors produce an AC current when spinning, probably got different resistance. I know that a Jeep sensor is the same way, only work with the dealer. Others may work with the aftermarket. Yeah, I can tell you that mine, I don't get it, man. I have no idea. I'm still trying to figure out. I mean, it again. Oh, I keep forgetting to circle back around to this. So this is the part number that does not work. Now, if you look up other parts in the aftermarket, other parts manufacturers, you'll find that you may have a different part number set. In other words, two or three different part numbers for different cars, like 5.7 and 3.7 cars might have one part number, or rather 3.7 cars may have a part number, 5.7 cars could have a part number, and 6.4 and Hellcats could have another part number. It's crazy. Roy, thank you very much. Say, use for your Father's Day. Thank you very much. I will. I'll be taking my dad. I think we're taking him out to breakfast that day. So we shall see. But thank you very much for the kindness, man. I appreciate that. Let's see. Hang on just a second. Let me pull back up here. Thank you again, man. I appreciate that. Oh, Rich saying, by the way, I think my Uconnect got messed up because I did the update with my Hellcat burn box in. Try this. Unplug your battery. Unplug the battery. Make sure you wrap a towel around the negative terminal, whichever one you pull off. Get in the car and hit the brake, hit the horn, press buttons, do everything you can. Try to discharge everything in the system, and let it sit for, I don't know, about 5 minutes. Come back, plug it in, and see if that doesn't re-kick your Uconnect. I've had to do that with both of my cars before. Dr. Diffs at Aaron Perez, maybe I missed something, saying you need to have it tuned for what you have. A startup tune or a base tune is just that to get it running. I guess I missed something that Aaron had written up here. With a basic tune, do you think it's bad to run? Oh, are you saying, Aaron, are you saying you have just a bass tune in it, like you're just a startup tune? If that's the case, I thought you were saying like a basic, like it's, just not much done to it. If I'm reading that wrong and you have a startup tune in the truck, then no, that's just there to get you to the dyno. Don't get out there and start beating on it. There's a chance you could actually do some damage to that engine. By the way, that's something that no reputable shop will do, is put a startup or a bass tune in your car and send you off into the world with it. This is something that shops have learned the hard way over the years, and I can tell you from experience, I'm not going to get too detailed with this, but gave a customer a startup tune. And basically it said, look, you've got to understand this is a startup tune. It's basically going to be good enough to get the vehicle onto the trailer and then get that vehicle from being on the trailer to the shop. Like, it's not meant for you to drive around. Just tell the guy, look, this is not for you to be driving the thing around on. Customer gets the car, fires it up, decides to take it for a spin, and blows it the hell up. That is something that happened, and then the customer was pissed. What a fucking idiot. Literally tell the guy, you cannot drive this car on the street. Guy goes and beats the shit out of this car and blows it up. Another funny one was telling a customer this is a startup tune only. You could, if you have to have it, if you can't tow it, drive it to the shop. You cannot put it in boost. and you basically would flag the timing table at some obscenely low timing value, and make sure that the fuel air commanded is real rich, and only to hear and see this customer wide open throttle blasting the thing down the street. And a guy shows up at the shop and we're like, get lost, not even going to touch it. Saw what you were doing with the car, probably jacked something up. So if it's a base tune for those reasons, no. But anyway, I digress. Let's see. Oh, BB saying, thinking about the Mopar rear seat delete kit, how difficult do you rate the install? During the summertime, it sucks ass, dude. If you're going to get it, wait till it cools off, or if you've got a air-conditioned garage or something like that, or a couple of big-ass fans you can put in there. The problem is that you're going to be stuck more or less in the back seat of that car with it hot as hell with no airflow. You're going to be sweating on everything. You're going to need a T50 or a T55 to remove the strikers for the seats themselves, or some other things. The strikers themselves are soft metal. Don't get in there and just start ripping on it. Be real careful with how you apply the torque. You don't want to just, you don't want to, friggin' Seven Dragons that thing, man. You want to just kind of slowly and keep a lot of pressure on that Torx bit, and just make sure that you're not stripping it. I ended up stripping one on Shalandra and had to drill the thing out. That was a real treat. So anyway, a big pain in the ass with the rear seat delete kit is the package tray, believe it or not. The package tray is about as sturdy as your standard, like, cardboard box lid. There's nothing to it. By the way, you can take the box of that thing and wear it like a freaking hat. I mean, there is no weight to that kit whatsoever. But anyway, getting back to it, you're gonna be in the car for a while. It's not hard to do. It's just fiddly and tedious to do. So don't be afraid about, popping the panels off and, removing as many panels as you can to get the thing in there. Again, the package tray is the biggest pain in the ass that I found. And also be careful because, again, it's lightweight. It's not meant to be sat on or anything like that. So try not to jack it up in the process. I was real careful with mine putting it in. Ripped is asking if putting Eibach lowering springs will jack up his launch. No. What it'll do is you need to make sure you get the car realigned. What happens is when you compress that suspension or articulate it, in this case, you see, like if my hand, like if the flat bottom part of my hand is the tire, it's going to come up and it's going to mess with your contact patch. So just make sure that you get that thing realigned. But on a set of ET Street R's, you'll be fine. I don't think you'll have any issues. There's plenty of guys that throw the iBox on their car and don't have any real issues. Aaron's asking, where do I get my tunes? I tune my own cars, so I get them from this guy. He's all right. Oh, Dr. is saying, my buddy Patrick, the guy that owns the Dyno Jet, has an RX-7 with a Coyote in it, and it's making big power, like 1300-ish. He's constantly blowing it up or having some sort of bottom end issue, constant. Yeah, that's not an LS, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, look, it is what it is, man. You start getting gritty with these things, and unfortunately, unfortunate things do start to take place. Slash is in saying, sup, man? Gary Fuller saying, what up, B? Got the arm flex. I like it. Um, Red saying Hellcat airbox on a 4th gen Ram. Got one sitting in my storage unit. Will that even work? I don't even know if it'd work. I haven't even thought of that before. Probably wouldn't work. Just because of how everything angles off. Chris said, I have my car tuned with long tube headers already. If I were to change my headers, would I need a retune? No, you would not. Tux is asking, can you install a Hellcat engine in any muscle car? Like, for example, could you install a Hellcat engine in a Chevrolet Camaro? You could, although, listen, you know how this works. I mean, where there's a will, there's a way. And technically speaking, yes, you absolutely could, although I would question the sanity. But no, you can. In fact, there's a lot of guys that swap modern engines into older vehicles all the time. So again, if there's a will, there is a way. If you got the money and you've got the desire and you've got a team of people that are willing and able to do that, then you can do it. Chris is saying that he has got a terrible exhaust leak that's causing a tick, extremely loud. We found a few of the header bolts were loose. We tightened them up and it still ticked. Do you think it could be the gasket gone bad? Absolutely. Could also have warped the flange. So could be either or. Sam saying, most I ever do to my car is exhaust. I'm not too much into the whole fast and loud. I prefer loud and slow. If you can't have fun going slow, then what's the point of a one-trick pony? Yeah, it's funny. Sierra is a perfect example of that. That truck sounds great. And, it's funny that it's not, like, there's a couple of things that I would like to change on that truck. One of them is to maybe adjust the governor so that the 2-3 shift is a little bit later. Try to get it to shift like right at $5,000 on the 1-2 and 2-3. But realistically, it's not fast, right? It's just not. But man, you get into the throttle on that truck and it is perky. And what's really funny about that truck is at about 45 or 50 miles an hour, if you're kind of rolling into the throttle and hanging it on the secondaries, if you carry it a little bit too far, it'll downshift and it will try to come out from underneath you. And that is hysterical to me. Like, it's not fast by the numbers, but by a butt dyno, the thing is a freaking rocket ship. And that's, again, where, you compare it, like with the Camaro. I've said this over and over again about the Camaro. And the truck is the same way. In fact, maybe a little bit more so. Where the truck and the Camaro just have all this tip-in torque and bottom-end just super snappy throttle response. And you just don't really get that out of modern vehicles. Not like that anymore. So anyway, I get it. Kurt's asking, what is better than the paraffin oils out of Pennsylvania or asphalt oils out of Texas? Well, it's Texas T. Texas Sweet Crude is kind of the gold standard for oil. So I don't know much about any of the other types of that. I just know they like it down here. Chris is asking, I want to run 10s. I'm a full bolt-on cam nitrous 6.1 Challenger. What would be needed in that setup to run 10s? Well, I mean, if you've got a full bolt-on cammed nitrous 6.1, I think you pretty much got all your bases covered. So I don't know like what you're really asking. If what would be needed. I mean, obviously the tire setup. Go with a set of Forge Line or Forge Star, whatever it is that I've got. D5s. Set of DBRs on the back with, your Mickey Thompson runners up front, and get out there and have some fun. Maybe a converter, but if you're already there with all of those parts, and then you're not, you're not that far away from where you need to be. Chris asking, any opinion on the JMS drag wheels for my Challenger? They're all actually pretty good. The only time you've got to really worry about the wheels themselves is if you've got a Hellcat or an SRT. In other words, anything with the big front brakes. The D5s or rims like that are really the only smaller runner style that you can run on the front of those things. I've run Dark Stars, and the only issue that I've run into with Dark Stars was the weights, just the balancing of the thing. But no, they're all good. And all of those, the modern stuff is pretty good. You honestly cannot go wrong. The Recluse are probably the heaviest of the group. Recluse and Dark Stars are fairly heavy as far as as far as a drag pack goes, but don't let that bum you out because they're durable. You got to remember, you start playing that weight game and you're immediately going to be giving up durability. And you don't want to set a beer can rims that you can't even drive to the track without having nicks or dents or things like that. There's a lot of guys that live that life. And man, look, my car is an automobile first. All right. It's not a race car. It's not an anything. It's a car. I mean, it gets me from point A to point B if I need to do that. And, so anyway, if that makes any sense, hope that makes sense. Rift is telling Chris he ran a 10.9 in his manual 6.1, but that was with a Pro Charger and a built motor. Someone's asking, hey B, do you think the Scat Pack hood scoop is functional? No, they're blocked off. My 08 SRT has a duct, and I wonder if it does anything. In that case, it could. Yeah, there were some there were kits actually, I think, that you could convert those to functional, but no. Most of the guys, in fact, some guys would actually get a separate deal that you pop in, and they would actually drill them out to get some, try to get some cooling in there, but it just also adds underhood pressure. So, but it can help out a little bit. Chris is asking, would a two-step Kohler spark plug cause a tick in my 6.1? Not at all. Riv saying, somehow my 2015 Hellcat still has Uconnect access, meaning I still have satellite radio and all the features that connect to my phone from it. Not like I'm complaining though. That's kind of cool. I had my truck was like that. Somebody was still paying for XM radio in that thing. Non-X is asking, how are you? Doing good. Hope you're doing good. And I say, what do you think causes a chirp sound only when the AC is on the belt or the Pro Charger gears? It's going to be the belt. Oh, Doc Div saying, with the Uconnect issue, touch the positive and negative cables together while off the battery. Yeah, in other words, you don't tie them together. And keep them together for a minute or so, then hook them back up and check again. That is called a capacitive discharge. Arthur's saying, let's go be Mason. Got the bald guy with the shades and the flex. I like it. 9X has got the 6.1 Hemi Pro charged. Summer Night saying, hey, B Mason, got the bald guy with the flex. I like it. Rich saying he never paid for it, but he does have some cool features. Very nice. Badar is saying, I have a buddy who has an AW11 MR2 and keeps trying to get a replacement belt, but they keep giving him the AE86 pulleys belt. That's a bummer. Roy's checking in with Sovereign. Let's see. Roy's saying, just listen to the main man, Mason. X is saying, man, it's almost been 13 years since the Challenger has had a change. The car needs some weight loss. Dodge is so insanely lazy when it comes to updates. Well, the thing is, man, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, buddy. And since 2015, when the facelift took place, man, business is a booming, and there ain't no reason to change what's working. So I would be willing to venture a guess and say that when again, it's my understanding the labor agreement was extended. It was going to end in 2023, and my understanding is that it had been extended to 2025, which means, in essence, that the licensing agreement for the LX platform through Mercedes-Benz obviously was extended through 25. After that, I mean, who knows what's going to take place after that? But I can assure you that whatever the case is, you're still going to have to buy genuine Mopar parts for your car. KDC saying, hey Mason, currently getting that Joker cam put in this week in the 14 RT Challenger. Can't wait to try that 3500 stall at the track. Should be a riot. This is my first go around modding anything. Well, welcome to the family. It's going to be a learning curve, brother, but I think you're going to have fun. Let's see. Tux is asking if you can change a horn. Yeah, you can absolutely do that. Changing horns is easy because it's just a 2-wire deal. GBG saying, hello, how are you doing? Good. Hope you're doing good too. Say, I'm kind of new to this Mopar scene. How good is a 5.7 for a daily? They're really good. A lot of people love driving their 5.7s daily. As a matter of fact, that's what a lot of guys do. They'll have either a truck like I do, obviously 5.7, or they'll have a Charger as their daily driver, and they're great as dailies. So just keep the oil change regularly and you should be good. Randy's saying, hit that like button. Yeah, hit the like button. Hit the like button. If you're new to the channel, subscribe. Make sure you ring the bell. Because of how algorithms work and all of that, subscriptions are great, but bells are better because reasons, at least you're informed when I pop up, unless you don't want to see me pop up. But it's something that I've discovered anyway. 1320 saying, good evening, B. Good evening, Jake. Kevin saying, I have a 6.1 Magnum, 400 horse with a few bolt-ons. Any recommendations leaning towards a 426 stroker kit? Well, man, look, if you're leaning towards a 426, any recommendations that I give you are really going to be more or less a moot point. The good thing is that you're starting off life with the 6.1, a lot more simple to work with. And I would say, yeah, I mean, you know, if you're looking at making some power with that thing, maybe look into, you know, ported heads, extrude honed intake. That's going to be kind of expensive. And you don't necessarily need them. It really depends on what you're going for with the car. I mean, you're getting a lot of people telling you got to put Tech heads on it, or you got to do this or that. You don't got to do anything. Your heads will flow plenty, although they're not as good as the later versions of those Hemi heads. They still flow fine. They'll support about 550, 570 horsepower without touching them. What I would suggest, obviously, a pretty healthy cam. You're going to need the long tube headers and basically everything else that comes along with it. Now, I will tell you this, 6.1 to 426 is a pretty big jump. If you were to tell me that you had a 6.4, probably be like, I don't know if you really need to. But a 6.1, you'll get a nice chunk of power out of that. So it'll be fun, but it won't be cheap. Don't try to save money on this build, by the way. One thing I'll tell you is, in this business, you absolutely get what you pay for. And the minute you start trying to go cheap, the minute you start trying to cut corners, you'll know it. And believe me when I tell you, the car will remind you in a hurry. Chris is asking, is it possible to run long tube headers with open headers? Because it sounds freaking mad. I loved it until we put the mid pipe on. Unfortunately, no, with these cars. The reason for that is that the O2 sensors, it'll jack your fuel trims up like crazy. The only way that you can realistically run open headers is to put about a 24 to 36 inch collector pipe on the back of that header. 18 inch is kind of like a dyno standard, but you can't have the reverberation of fresh air hit your oxygen sensor. It's gonna make the thing think the car is running way leaner than it is. It's gonna dump a lot of fuel on it. It's gonna run like ass. And it's realistically something that happens. You don't realize this, but there's a pressure wave just on the other side, and as things are coming out of that pipe, that's done in pulses. Even though from a time perspective, you think it's not happening, but it really is. Like in slow motion, it blows out, and then there's that high pressure wave goes away, and air rushes in to take its place. So that's why you see that pulsating, and with that comes fresh air, and with that fresh air is the oxygen that'll piss off your oxygen sensor. So what you have to do is you have to have an extension on the back of that thing that's long enough to where when that fresh air pulse comes in, it doesn't touch. Like if my fist is that oxygen sensor, you don't want that fresh air being able to come in and get sucked into the pipe before the next pulse blows everything out. So you want that to come in and not hit that oxygen sensor. And again, usually 36 inches is enough to get it done. And you can just get a 36-inch pipe with a turn down and make all the racket that you want. Rift is asking, do you think the weight savings from an aluminum block with the elephant motor, we're talking about the elephant motor, is worth it, or should someone save money and just build a 426 with a red eye motor? You'd be better off building a 426 out of a 6.4. I mean, you don't. So if you were to try to build a 426, we're talking about an NA block here, or an NA build here, with an aluminum block. First of all, good luck finding the aluminum block. Second of all, to be honest with you, I don't know that the extra 100 pounds of weight savings is really going to be worth it to you. I mean, you're going to be spending a premium amount of that cheddar for something that I just don't think is going to get you to the promised land. I mean, unless you're doing some like real aggressive build for a race, like a true race car, I wouldn't worry about it. I mean, when it comes to that Hellcat engine anyway, the guys that are trying to build that thing to make any real serious power running into problems with it because it's aluminum. Aluminum moves around a lot, and that's not like a full Siamese sleeved block. So, you start trying to make big power with aluminum block with boost, you start running into some potential issues. So anyway, that's just kind of life with the elephant motor. Rob Zilla's saying, can we talk about LT Gen 5 versus Coyote versus Hemi? Talking about the Coyote makes 1,000 horsepower easily, especially since the engine doesn't have to be open. What are your thoughts on high horsepower ranges? Well, the thing is that nobody is touching right now the Mustangs on the back half in terms of mile an hour. It's just the way that it is. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that you can adjust independently the camshaft profile itself. You can have an engine, or you can have a camshaft profile that at idle has super wide lobe separation angle, easy to tune. The whole thing just sits there and burbles like a stock car. Go to wide open throttle and it slams those two lobe separation angles together. And as the thing revs out, opens up and rocks back the cam. So you've got that thing is full of cheat codes, man. I mean, that's the thing. Yeah, it's only 5 liters, but there's a lot going on with that 5 liters that isn't going on with the LT or Hemi. So there's that. I mean, when you start talking about RPM extensions of, 1,500 RPM, that's a lot of headroom to make horsepower with, regardless of what the displacement is. The Hemi is really good. It's just that there's no aftermarket support. And the LT, there's still less there, but you can still do a pretty good job of making power with the LT. But, you know, it just depends on what your cup of tea is. If you like something that's fun and fast and has a lot of torque, a lot of tip-in throttle response, Hemi is real hard to beat. And by the way, that particular recipe, that particular flavor, if you will, I mean, the market is bearing out that a lot of people like that. And whatever the Gen 5 LT has got going for it, you know, I don't know about all that, but I can tell you that the Coyote trumps both of them in sales. So, and that's for people that never do anything to those engines, never mod them whatsoever. So, I don't know. If you judge things by what the market will dictate, Coyote's top of the game. But looks like Mopar's coming in second, and a strong second for good reasons. But if you're talking about something you're just trying to build a ton of power with, yeah, good luck trying to beat the 5.0. You're just, it's really going to be difficult to get there from here. As far as making big power with the Hemi, look, you can absolutely do it. You know, twin turbos with a sniper intake, an aggressive cam. You've got all the head flow in the world. Pull the thing apart, different pistons with decent ring gap. You'll make whatever number you want to make with it. It's not like you can't make huge power with the Hemi. It's just that you got to open it up in essence to do it, because you got to put in some ring gap. Coyotes have a little bit of a higher ring gap per the bore size, I believe. So that's one of the reasons I can get away with a little bit more. But, you know, there are limits to everything. And the problem with the Coyote, like I was saying earlier, yeah, they will absolutely kick all kinds of ass right up until the point where they give up the ghost, man. And the thing is that I've seen it over and over and over and over again at the drag strip. So, you know, for the guys that are in the know and they build them the right way, you can make a ton of power and have a lot of fun for a long, long time. But man, you just got to build it the right way. And most guys don't. And that's part of the problem. A lot of guys don't. They run into problems with them. 1320 is asking any race events going on around the end of June, 1st of July, and he wants to take a road trip. Not that I'm knowing. I'm no, not yet anyway. Madera's saying his dad used to daily his 5.7 1500 before he bought the 2500. So yeah, 5.7 is a good daily for sure. Yeah, 13 saying in your area. No, not I can think of, man. Shit, I mean, I would say Texas this part of the world might not be the greatest place to try to plan a road trip until it starts cooling off. We have had nothing but rain. In fact, it rained today. So, that was fun. Rip is saying, oh, he does see a lot of people having issues with the oil pump gears and the Coyote, so I know when they need to be open if you want to make any good amount of power with boost. So what it is it's RPM. And if you've never seen, by the way, this is the scary part, if you've never seen what it takes to put the billet oil pump gears into a Coyote, you know, the part itself might only be, I don't know, $300 for the gears. But you have got to take off the front of the car to get to this thing. Like, it is not easy, and it is extremely labor intensive. So your $300 oil pump gears will probably end up costing you $3,000 by the time it's all said and done. That might be an exaggeration. It might not. I don't know. But that is a flipping nightmare. We're probably looking at, you know, freaking 16 hours worth of work, billable at least, going into that. So yeah, that's going to be a treat. I would say probably a minimum of that, if not more. And you need to. And what a lot of the shops will do is they'll take that cast gear and they'll ask you if you want it. If you're like, no, I don't want it, they'll just take it and drop it on the floor and it'll just go kablam. I mean, the thing just shatters. So yeah, it's definitely no joke. You got to get those things replaced if you're going to be turning a lot of RPM. And what you have to remember is those things buzz up to crazy RPMs and you have primary and secondary vibrations that will come into play and will start to play hell on those gears, and that's what causes them to break. And when they break, everything goes south. You will start to metal gets, it's bad. Everything goes bad. Let's see. Oh yeah. So yeah, Racer X's deal where they dropped his. Yeah, no, a lot of shops will do that. That's just kind of it's a calling card for gears. So I just saw that. That's pretty funny. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Yeah, Jimmy's hanging out with Riff. Oh, Mike's saying, getting from Eastern Washington. What's up, man? Just wanted to drop in while I'm tolling away at work before the chat wraps up. How's everybody? Hope you're doing good. Sovereign saying, yeah, Racer X rocking near 900 horsepower and 12.5 pounds of boost. Yeah, they're impressive to say the least. But man, I'll tell you what, you are riding fuel quality pretty hard at that point. Riff saying, damn good power for a 5.0, for sure it is. Oh, Mike's saying, just curious if there's any reason why the RTs use the little filter as opposed to the bigger filter like the last gen. I have no idea. I don't even have one over here. I only use the Mopar filters on all of my stuff. That's a V8 Hemi. And what I don't even have, normally I have one sitting over here and I don't. I literally just changed the oil in the red car. I don't have a clue. I really don't. And like I say, I always use the same filters. Those Mopar filters seem to be pretty good. So, and speaking of which, talking about using the right parts. So, and we're coming up on about an hour and a half here, guys. I'm going to have to wrap it up here pretty soon because I got to wake up with the Amish in the morning. But again, don't make the same mistake that I did, thinking that you can just go to your local parts store and get a wheel speed sensor that is visually identical to your old wheel speed sensor that has a part number that looks like that, because it will not work. You've got to have the Mopar part number. You want to make sure when you get your speed sensor that it has on it printed right here near the sensor itself. You want to make sure that it has printed, if it'll focus, your Mopar part number right here. God, that thing is not, anyway, you'll see it printed. I think this new one ends in AC, but this will be your part number here, right there. 68199987AC is the latest part number. This is the original one, so it's AA. Make sure it has that part number on it, because if it does not, it's not going to work. Also, as a reminder for your hubs, two things. One, if you feel like it might be your tone ring in your front hub, which is, I was having the problem with mine, just remember that tone ring is non-serviceable. So here's that hub. Underneath here, this is where your tone ring is. And that sensor, just kind of give you a visual, sits in there like this. It's kind of measuring it like that, okay? But this is non-serviceable. I mean, you might be able to pry this thing off or something, but I ain't about to try to do that. Again, non-serviceable, you have to buy the whole hub. So the whole hub, should you need it, that would be your part number right there at the bottom, the 683026, what is that, 5 something? Anyway, ends in AA. That would be your part number for that hub. And one thing to remember with the hubs, they come pre-assembled. There is no spindle. See how that terminates right there? There's no spindle. This is your bearing right in here, and it comes pre-filled with oil or packed with whatever grease. Just know that there is a chance it could weep out of this a little bit. Don't freak out. I've seen hubs, I've seen parts like this. They may have a little bit come out. That's just basically like when you change oil and you get a little bit of oil in the ring or whatever. and you might see it dribble out as you drive the car, but it's not leaking. It's just doing the little dribble thing. That's basically what I believe is going on with mine. I'm not really going to sweat it. I'm going to drive it around a little bit, try to get about 100 miles on it. And if I see any of that grease or oil that's in there coming out of it, more than that on my rim, it'll actually, there's a drain literally right on the other side of your rotor. But anyway, don't worry about it weeping, but if you end up seeing it leak, that's, probably have to take it back. But I've seen these types of parts before, and they'll weep for a minute or two, and then they're fine after that. So again, Mopar only get the Mopar part for that, because that's real important. This is the box that it came in. If it was leaking, like if it legitimately was jacked up, you'd be seeing this box full of, it'd be juiced up pretty good in there, and there ain't nothing in here. So I ain't sweating. And I know how to warranty these things, if that ends up being the case, and I can do the work myself, so no big deal there. Let me answer a few more questions, and then I am gonna split. Let's see. Hang on. Oh, Rob's asking, what horsepower can you make on E85? On a stock engine, I wouldn't, not a whole lot. I mean, you can command a little bit more timing, but it's not going to be a ton. You'll pick up torque, and that's really more the question. How much torque can you pick up? You'll pick up torque down low, but horsepower, you're not going to pick up any horsepower. We did that dance. Rick is asking what he's worried about is how much low-end torque does a Coyote have? Less than a 392, but more than it should have for a 5-liter. Let's see. Sovereign saying, yeah, all these sensors have integrated circuits and they can have firmware or serial number security checks. I don't doubt it. It just kind of pisses me that you can buy the part and then the part doesn't work. Mike's saying, yeah, I tried researching it, and all I could sort of deduce was there's a slight bypass pressure difference between the two. For a Hemi or in general, higher should be better, right? What were we talking about? I don't know. I can't remember, Mike. Let's see. Oh, talking about the filters. Oh, I'd say the bigger the filter, the better. I would never argue that a small filter would be better. I'm not saying that the small filter is bad. I'm just saying that in this case, I would rather have more filter media. Oh, Sovereign saying, I wondered how they did it. An RPM sensor might be an infrared laser that needs a notch or marking on the piece. No, it's nothing like that. They're all typically Hall effect sensors. And all that is it's just a square wave deal where you're counting square waves per a time a time set. That's it. Nothing to it. Oh, Nine's asking, is it worth it to change to a cog belt on a 6.1 Pro Charger, just upgrade the standard belt? Just upgrade the standard belt. Depends on how much boost you're trying to run through it, or what I should say, what your pulley ratio is, because boost is kind of an irrelevant number when it's coming to the parasitic hit that belt gets tagged with. If you've got a standalone setup and you got it like an 8 rib, you should be good to pretty much anything that pump gas will manage, at least. Rip's saying, on my 09 SRT8 6-speed, my front passenger side tire keeps making a knocking and clicking sound when I turn or go over a bump. I checked everything so far except the hub. Do you think it could be that? It could be. Check it out. I think those cars have a spindle type hub though, but it's certainly worth checking out. And if it's got any play in it, then you need to go ahead and replace that. Riff saying I do have coilovers on the car, but I did check them, so I don't think that's what it is. Just make sure that when you check them, make sure that if you're looking at them and everything's cool, just know that if you if you have polyurethane or Duralin bushings and you've got a metal sleeve, anything that bolt is touching in there can make noise and can really get annoying. So just know that going into it. What I would suggest doing is getting the thing at like slack, like get the car up and then get a jack and then put just a little bit of pressure on your A-arm and get one of the fronts to like slack pressure, like it's not holding up the car, you're just starting to compress it a little bit. And then see if you can visually get an idea for how much play you have between your hardware. A lot of times it's the play that you have in the hardware that's causing that as the suspension is traveling. I ran into that with the Spawn rear suspension setup that I had on Shalandra, and it drove me nuts. Sovereign saying, oh, Magnus, never thought of that. Yep, that's how they do it. And it can be either way. Like, in other words, the sensor itself is only looking for that square wave input. So it's looking for it, or it could be that it's being hit with the signal and then off, like in an actual exciter ring where you have the squares. That gap is enough to where the sensor won't see it. So you've got the part that the sensor sees and then doesn't see, sees and then doesn't see, sees and then doesn't see, and it knows that there's a certain amount in a complete cycle, and it knows that at a certain rate the vehicle is moving at a certain speed. That's why you use them for crankshaft position sensors and things like that. It's the exact same thing. And all it is just a square wave translator, for lack of a better way of putting it. And with that, guys, I got to wrap it up. I want to thank each and every one of y'all for hanging out with me. Love each and every one of y'all. Could not do this without you. And with that, y'all be safe out there. If you're going to send it, don't bend it. Keep your shiny side up. And I will catch y'all on the next one. And that's a wrap. Adios.